the G5 jet. I'm on my way to a brand new kit.
All right, welcome back, eSIMstudios YouTube channel. Glad everybody could join us here today on this Sunday. It is March 29th, 2026. How's everybody doing on this Sunday afternoon? Well, I guess technically it's Sunday evening. Well, it could be, it could be even Monday, depending on where you're watching this. But appreciate everybody joining me. I wanted to get into some potential issues, the most common issues. And look, it's not, well, I take that back. Some are serious, some are not. I was going to say they're not that bad, but actually there's a couple that are. So anyways, there's a number of issues, common issues that people are having with their S26 Ultra. I think it's been out for what, 3 weeks now, something like that. I've had mine for 2 weeks, and every now and then you'll see common issues pop up. So we're going to run through the list of issues that people commonly have with the S26 Ultra. And if you run into those specific issues, what you can do to solve them. Now, we're also going to get into the CPU comparison. And this is one that I've been dying to dive into. And I did that today. And we have the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 versus the Samsung Exynos 2600. Now you can find the Exynos 2600 in either the base S26 model or the S26 Plus, depending on where you're located. They're still doing the split markets between Snapdragon and Exynos. And we'll find out kind of what it looks like so far, again, into 3 weeks into this device, and starting to see some results, some good news, some bad news. We'll get in and compare the two. But for the Ultra, it's Snapdragon worldwide. So this would pertain to the base model and or the middle child, right? So we'll look into that and then see potentially where Samsung goes with their upcoming Samsung Exynos 2700 for next year. We'll see. Maybe that's a good idea. Maybe it's not. We're about to find out. So let me get situated here. I got a number of graphics. And I'd set this for like 5:30 or 5:45 and had to keep on pushing it back because I kept on loading all these graphics and, oh, should I add this? Should I not add that? This one's too confusing. This one's not. So I have some graphical information for you to look at as well, and we'll review everything. So how's everybody doing today? Simper Buffo, it's good to see you today. How you doing? It's good to see you. I have not seen you here yet. Am I silenced? Let me check. No, I'm good. I can hear. I can hear it. Turn around for me. Sorry, I'm not gonna do that today. I've been on my feet all day, so I will not turn around for you. But let's turn into the information that I got for you. How about that? Let's do this. So I'm going to, let me maneuver my screen slightly to where I can find some of these graphics here. Okay. So let's get into the S26 Ultra. Let's do S26 Ultra issues and how to solve them. So the early adopters of this S26 Ultra, let me put this graphic up here for everybody. This is what we are going to, there we go. This is what we're going to dive into today, right? So we are going to take a look at everything from water in the lens to some people saying it's overheating, some Android Auto issues, some connectivity issues, all that good stuff, right? So this is a piece of information that was kind of head scratching. This is what I found online. I don't know. I don't think it's this high, but this is what I say numerous, maybe 2 or 3 online publications were saying when it comes to issues with this phone. That initial data suggests that 70% of users are enjoying the phone and really don't have any problems, while the remaining 30% are currently navigating a landscape of technical issues. It appears that being at the forefront of technology in 2026 still involves acting as an unofficial beta tester. I've been there. I'm still there. The S26 series and the Ultra model in particular is facing a set of counterintuitive challenges that complicate its premium status and require a bit of inside knowledge to navigate. And that's what this video is here for you today. So let's jump into the very first topic, probably the biggest issue that many people have with this device. And let me put up this graphic right here. So we are going to jump through we're going to navigate issues and how to solve them. And as I was mentioning, 30% of users have an issue with this device. I would say that's kind of high, no? Seems high to me, 30%. And I think a large majority of that is due to the display. So the S26 Ultra features one of the most advanced mobile displays ever produced. It is very nice. I've said that on the last live stream. I don't have a problem with it, but I understand people do. I understand where people are coming from. I don't just automatically dismiss them and or their issues if they have an issue with this display. And I'm going to say it again. Is it as good as the S25 Ultra? I don't believe so. I believe the S25 Ultra has a slightly better display, but does it mean that the S26 Ultra's display is trash? No, it's still good. If the S25 Ultra is at a 10, the S26 Ultra is probably at a 9, right? So, and it depends on the person. It depends on you. A significant number of users that do have issues with this display are reporting a fuzzy text, a fuzzy looking display. Or yesterday, like one of the viewers said, a milky display. I think it kind of follows in the fuzzy text, right? So inconsistent dimming is another issue people have been explaining. General eye discomfort, PWM management, eye strain. Some even said headaches. It's a striking irony, a device that has a really good display, but for some it's proving difficult to look at, right? So I believe, and I think the general assumption here is that the privacy display is the culprit of essentially all these issues. Now, I think the PWM necessarily is not affected by the privacy display and or the construction of it, the hardware of those pixels, but it has been an issue on some Samsung phones, right? I know personally a few people that just can't use Samsung phones because it gives them a headache. So every phone's different, but while it was designed to control the pixel level brightness to prevent side snooping, the feature currently seems to degrade the overall clarity to reclaim the sharpness that you paid for. So here's what we recommend to adjust on your display settings. So recommended display optimization, disable privacy display. If you have it on, just turn it off, right? And to do that, you can go to Settings app, go to Display, and activate, and turn off maximum privacy protection and the regular privacy protection. Now, to configure the eye comfort shield, if it is straining your eyes, giving you headaches, here's another setting you can potentially do. So if you go to the Settings app, go to the Display section and activate the eye comfort shield setting to mitigate the blue light induced fatigue on your eyeballs. And here is another tip you can try. You're going to want to toggle extra dim mode. Now, that might not be useful if you're outside, but if you're inside, it certainly can help. So, for those of you with high light sensitivity, navigate to settings, accessibility, and then vision enhancements to enable the extra dim mode. Let's see here. Next up on the list, what do you know? Next up on the list. Yeah, my graphics are all jacked up, aren't they? So, next up on the list, we have hardware boundaries. So, this is actually going to be a hardware level issue and or issues that I'm not too sure if this can be fixed by an update through Samsung. These two hardware issues looks like you're either going to have to deal with it or you're going to have to return it. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about the 25-watt wireless charging and the moisture under the camera sensors. Now let's address the 25-watt fast wireless charging. So on paper, the S26 Ultra supports 25-watt fast wireless charging. In practice, many users, including myself, are lucky to see speeds between 5 and 10 watts. I think I did a video about this, testing the wireless charging, and it was laughable how ridiculously slow it charged wirelessly. In fact, I don't even think I went over 10 watts when I'm using 140 watt freaking charging brick and technically I'm using a wireless charging standard 2.2 wireless charger, which that's the latest charging standard. It's rated at 25 watts. It should work, and it didn't. So this discrepancy has led to frustration among many of those that invested in high-end charging hardware only to find their fast wireless charging regulated at substandard speeds, may I add. The reality is a hardware handshake. So the handshake is a handshake between your device and the charger. It's a requirement that isn't immediately obvious at first. And to achieve the advertised 25-watt wireless charging speeds, you're probably going to need to purchase Samsung's own $60 wireless charging accessory. The pad itself must be powered by a 45-watt wall brick or higher, a component Samsung does not include in the box. So Samsung's own $60 wireless charger will get you 25 watts under very specific conditions. And again, these are not included in the box, so it appears even the aftermarket accessories might not get you to the claimed 25 watt fast wireless charging. It looks like you're going to have to purchase either a 45 watt Samsung charger or a 60 watt Samsung charger brick and their brand name wireless charger. I know dbrand put out a social media post. When was this? Maybe about a week ago, claiming that this is all jacked up. When I saw that post, I was like, maybe we need to test this. And boy, is it jacked up. It's a joke. And this is probably my biggest, because I don't have an issue with the display, right? I mean, do I prefer the S25 Ultra display? Yes, but guess what? I'm going to keep the S26 Ultra, so it is what it is. But it doesn't bother me. The wireless charging, this bothers me. Now, I don't typically wirelessly charge my devices because I don't see the point. Why wirelessly charge it when it takes time-wise, longer when I can just plug it in and be done with charging faster. So I take that, you know what? Every now and then I'll wirelessly charge it in my car, but even in my car, I'll put it up there on the mount. I have a wireless charging mount, but sometimes I'll take the plug out of the wireless charger and stick it in my phone so it charges faster. Get it? So I don't particularly use wireless charging. I know some people do. In fact, I think a lot of people do, and it's personal preference. But this is a joke. You pay $1,500 for a phone. They advertise 25-watt fast wireless charging, and I get it. You're probably going to need a decent brick that you plug into the wall. You can't put a 10 or 15 watt charger in a wall plug and expect it to charge it at 25 watts, right? I get that. I have a 140 watt charger here. Even tried my OnePlus charger, 120 watts. I think it was like 7.5 watts was what I was getting. It's ridiculous. It's insane. It's stupid. It's embarrassing. This should not happen. I'm not going to go on this long rant because I think I've already gone on for quite a while, but you get the point. Now, I don't think this is fixable on Samsung's end. Like, I don't think they can just push an update out and magically make it charge faster. What I probably need to do is purchase, and make a video about it, is purchase the Samsung branded wall charger, 60 watt fast wall charger. Actually, you know what? I do have a 60 watt Samsung charger here. I guess what I need to get is the wireless charger, plug it into my Samsung wall brick, and then test the charging. But I've tested that one video I put out. I tested, it wasn't an extensive test. It was pretty extensive, but I even tested other chargers. I was like, well, maybe, you know, I did all sorts of stuff behind the scenes. I can't get this thing over 10, 15 watts wireless charging. And it's stupid, quite honestly. And Samsung, you should be ashamed of yourselves for not enabling this or advertising 25 watt wireless. Now, can it achieve 25 watt wireless charging? Yeah, I mean, I've actually seen a video on YouTube where somebody got 25 watts, and I was like, well, how'd they do that? But I mean, it's embarrassing, and it pisses me off. Now, again, I don't use it a lot, but I know a lot of y'all do, and we shouldn't have to deal with this at this point, right? So it appears the aftermarket wireless chargers don't fast wireless charge this phone. So if you're a user of or you like to use fast wireless charging, it appears you're going to have to spend some extra money and get the Samsung branded stuff, which sucks, right? And again, I don't think it's fixable with an update. So let's move on, shall we? Fog in the camera sensors, moisture in the cameras, water in the camera lenses. Yes, it's a real thing. I've been called a liar. I've been called fake news. Well, I have the proof, and I've already put the proof out. I've made numerous videos. I don't want to bore you again, beat you over the head with this over and over and over. It's a real thing. Now, again, this is not really fixable. And if you have water in your camera sensors, it looks like moisture, it looks like fog, and it's typically on the bottom sensor. So from all the proof, all the photos I've seen, it's always on this bottom sensor right here. I've seen one in the middle sensor, but usually it's this one right here. You're going to want to return the phone. And if you're out of your 2-week return window, let's say, I think right now I'm out of my return window this weekend. So let's say, I don't know, in 6 weeks from now, I see moisture in my camera lens. I still think that would fall within the 1-year manufacturer's warranty for this. And if you get with Samsung reps on their Samsung website, you know, you can strike up a chat with them. I believe, don't take my word for it, but they should replace your phone with a new one. And they'll know, because the first thing you know, somebody will think is, well, did it fall into the bottom of a deep pool, right? Like how do they know this thing has never been in water yet you have water in your sensor? Well, when you send it into Samsung, they're going to open this up and see if the water sensor is triggered in here. They have like a little strip of paper that turns pink. You know, everybody's seen those, right? They've been in electronics for years. They'll open up your phone, see if that little strip of paper is pink. If it's not pink, if it's remained white, which means no moisture, then they'll, I'm sure, replace your phone. Again, don't take my word for it, but it should fall within the manufacturer's warranty. In fact, I would almost guarantee that. But if you do at any point see moisture in your camera sensors, you're going to have to contact Samsung because there's obviously nothing they can do about that. It appears that the seal around this sensor right here, did everybody watch and or see Jerry Rig Everything, Zach's video where he just simply took a knife and just popped off these sensors? It appears the sealant, whatever they used, glue, whatever, is not on some devices. It's not all devices. On a few devices, it looks like they didn't necessarily put the right amount of sealant on there, or it just didn't properly sit on there. Whatever the issue is, some people have seen moisture in their sensors. So again, if that's you, which I hope it's not, just contact Samsung and I think they'll square you away. I think they'll get you squared away. Now, let's move into, I want to do this. Let's move into the Android Auto. Yes, Android Auto. So let me pull up this one. There's another issue that I'm going to bring up. Now, I have not heard of this one before. This one's kind of new to me. Maybe you've seen it. Maybe you have the issue. I don't know, but apparently it's a real thing. I looked into it before I started this live, and people are having issues with Android Auto. Now, if you want to take a deep dive, I did a whole do any of y'all use Notebook LM? I freaking love Notebook LM, the Google notebook that summarizes sources, information. Well, that's where I got these graphics from, right? I have a link down below in the description of the two subjects we're talking about: S26 Ultra issues and how to solve them, and then the CPU comparison. I have both of those notebooks shareable down below in the description. I got all this and more. I got audio podcasts, I got video podcasts, I got the mind map, I got all sorts of stuff. So if this interests you, if you have issues with your phone and you've come to this video after the live to watch it, go down below. I got all this stuff on each topic. So Android Auto, there is a problem with Android Auto, which I'm gonna be honest with you, I hate Android Auto. I do not like it at all. It's clunky. I find it annoying, frustrating to operate. I just throw my phone up there and use it like a regular phone, right? Not when I'm driving, but for Android Auto, it's a no-go for me. Have y'all used Android Auto? The thing sucks. Anyways, I'm like, well, I didn't know this was, well, I've never used it. I think the last time I tried Android Auto was, I don't even know, maybe on the S25 Ultra. I know I tested it out when it got a big update maybe 6 months ago with my S25 Ultra. I think that was the time. I was like, nah, this is not cutting it. So again, another handshake problem with Android Auto and the device. It's how your device communicates with the Android Auto interface, right? Because some vehicles come with Android Auto installed, like the vehicle we just got a few months ago comes with Android Auto. And I think the issue, well, many users are reporting persistent connection failures with their S26 Ultra in their automobile when Android Auto is turned on. So before diving into software fixes, perform a basic hardware audit. Ensure your USB cable isn't torn, frayed, or otherwise damaged. If the hardware is sound, if there's no issues with the cable, you can even try another cable, a second cable. The most effective workaround is a wired first approach to establish the initial handshake, because you have wireless Android Auto and wired Android Auto. Typically wired Android Auto, meaning physically plugging your phone in to the USB port in your car, and then it'll activate Android Auto. Or some of the newer models have both wireless and wired. Now, I know it's easier to go wireless, but that may be the problem. If you're automatically trying to jump into wireless Android Auto, some people online I saw said that the smart switch is from going wired to wireless. So start out wired if you have wireless, if that's an option. Start out wired, meaning get Android Auto up and running in your vehicle, and while it's in its operating system, disconnect the wire. Now, make sure wireless is enabled before you do any of this, to where it'll jump back on wireless. But jumping on just on wireless at the very beginning is apparently looks like it might be the problem. So establish a successful physical connection with a high quality USB cable first. Don't use some crappy USB cable that you've had for 8 years. No, either use the USB cable that came in the box, or jump on Amazon and get you an Anchor cable, right? And you might need a USB type A to USB type C. So that's why it might not work. I haven't really seen a lot of USB type C outlets in vehicles. I don't know why. That's taken a while to catch on. So you probably have to get a decent USB type A to USB type C. Make sure your cable is good to go. If wireless still fails, navigate to settings, apps, Android Auto, then storage. Select clear cache and then clear storage, and then close out the app, and then restart the whole process. Plugged in first, and then when it's plugged in, remove the plug, and you should be good on wireless. So apparently that's a problem. Or you can try a third-party Android Auto adapter. That's another option, right? Because we have wired Android Auto in our new vehicle that we have, but I bought an adapter to use wireless Android Auto, and there's a ton out there. Apparently Motorola, who knew, has the very best Android Auto third-party accessory. It can be used wired or wireless. You simply plug this little dongle. I'll link it down below when this video is done. You plug it in, you plug this Motorola Android Auto dongle into your vehicle, and then your phone connects to the dongle in your car wirelessly. Apparently it has raving reviews, so that's another option as well. Now, this very last one, Snapdragon thermal management, this can be adjusted and or fixed with a software update. Out of the, if you're new to my channel, I had a absolute horrible experience with this time last year with my S25 Ultra. I got 3 of them last year. All 3 overheat big time last year. Now, what solved my overheating issues on this S25 Ultra was a software update, essentially upgrading to One UI 8.5 beta. No more overheating. And it takes them a month or two to fine-tune the thermal management on these devices, and that goes with any company, not just Samsung, right? It takes a few months for them to maybe fine-tune the cameras. It takes a few months for them to fine-tune the CPU, the GPU. So if you have now I haven't seen many people overheating complaints online when it comes to the S26 Ultra. That was one of my fears with this, because like, oh great, I'm going to get another Galaxy, flagship Galaxy, and it's going to overheat on me again. I don't have any overheating issues. There was one time. So out of basically 12 to 14 days I've had this S26 Ultra, out of these last 12 to 14 days, there's only one event, one time where my phone got hot, and that's it. Other than that, it's cool as a cool as the other side of your pillow. It's nice and cool. So I don't know, maybe it was and what I did was I went to the GSAM battery management app, and what app was it that was running in the background? I can't remember. It was an app that I don't really use, and I just uninstalled it. I restarted my phone, and has not been hot since. So that stuff, and maybe I'll link the GSAM battery app review video down below when this is done, to show you how to detect possibly an app that's running in the background that's overheating your device, right? Maybe I'll do that. Hey, what's going on? Appreciate you joining us today. Just running through some S26 Ultra issues and how to solve them. And I'm gonna mention this again. I have all this information and more in the links down below. It's a notebook LM I put together earlier this morning, and I got a lot of information. So if you have S26 Ultra issues, go see my link down below, and it's got a ton of information. This is just scratching the surface of these graphics that I'm showing you. Now, before we move on to the Snapdragon 8 Gen Elite 5, what did I say? Now, before we get to the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5, versus the Exynos 2600 CPU comparison, I want to show you this real quick. So I want to show you the System Administrator's Toolkit, how to go into the recovery and wipe cache. Be careful if you wipe data. Let me get into this real quick. So here is a toolkit, a how-to guide to get into the recovery menu, right? Like the behind-the-scenes stuff. Well, I guess most of y'all probably have not flashed ROMs or custom firmware, but I used to know this like the back of my hand. So at the factory, like when they physically put these phones together, they have to have a back end to load the software on these phones. This is sort of like, for those of y'all that know somewhat about computers, it's kind of like the BIOS, right? It's kind of like the BIOS of a computer. It's kind of like the back end. It's like the base operating system. Now, there's no graphics. It's just looks like old Microsoft DOS print text. But that's how they load operating systems onto these phones. That's how you can wipe the cache. That's how you can do a factory data reset. Now, it's not touchscreen. You have to use your buttons. But here is a quick breakdown of just how you do this. Because to boot your phone in this sort of BIOS mode, you have to, it's weird, press and hold the power button and volume up button at the same time. Some in like on OnePlus phones or another phone, you'd have to release one at a certain time to get into it. But specifically for the S26 Ultra, this is how you do it. I got how to boot it into safe mode. And typically you're not going to need to use safe mode. I'm not going to get into it, but you're probably never going to use that. How to factory reset it, right? And then how to wipe your cache partition. Now, I'm going to caution you, you can obviously explore all you want, but be careful. Don't just be pushing, do this, yes, and it'll ask you, are we confirming you want to do this? But be careful, because you can push a couple of buttons and before you know it, your phone's wiped and you're back to square one. And you're like, whoa, what happened? So be careful. Again, you can wipe your cache partition, and that kind of, wipes your cache, but be cautious of wiping data. That will do a factory data reset on your phone. You're going to reboot it, and it's going to be like it's brand new. You're like, what did I do? So use with caution. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments and ask, because I have tons of experience with this. But you can factory reset it if you want to, certainly. And then wipe your cache. So that's always handy. All right. Hey, what's up, man? Hope you're doing okay today. So let's move on. I think that was it for the issues. No, let's see. Yeah, that's it for the issues. So if you have any problems with your S26 Ultra and you need some advice, or you need to be, maybe point you in the right direction with what you should do, hit me up in the comments. Again, I check them every day. And again, all this information we're looking at right now is down below in the description box. Check. I made my notebook LM accessible to everybody, so be my guest. I've got some cool stuff on there. Now let's move on to the Exynos 2600 versus the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5. I'm surprised I haven't messed up too many words today, because I got a lot of stuff. I got a lot of numbers running through my head. So hang on one second. Let me pull. I got to pull up some information. So give me a second. I have a I have to load the graphics and in this notebook. Actually, you know what? I guess I could share my notebook on my screen. I don't have to do individual graphics. Hang on one second. Okay. I think I'm ready. I think I am ready. I forgot to share my live stream across my social media accounts to let everybody know that I'm live. Okay. Let's jump into Exynos 2600 versus Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5. This is not necessarily like a matchup for the ages, because we really didn't know what to expect with the Samsung CPU. We knew, I think it's all general knowledge, or I think we were perceiving the 8 Elite Gen 5 from Snapdragon to be pretty solid. Now, this is not the first device that Qualcomm has put this in, right? We've had the OnePlus 15 was released maybe, two or 3 months before the S26 Ultra. So those of you that have had the OnePlus 15, you knew this was a freaking badass CPU, rock solid, very strong performer, very good on efficiency, which is weird because do you remember when the OnePlus 15s first came out and everybody was saying, oh, the CPU overheats, oh my god, my phone gets so hot, which was weird too because I watched a video where he shot a temperature gun at the back of a OnePlus 15 and it was hot. So I'm like, but when I got mine, it's never even gotten hot once. Now, that's something OnePlus developers and Samsung developers can tweak the CPU, right? They can scale it back a bit. But I think when we got the S26 Ultra, it was already, I think they've had some time to tweak it, right? They've had their Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 just as long as OnePlus has had theirs. Just because they released it 2 to 3 months after OnePlus did doesn't mean OnePlus had a 2 to 3 month head start on R&D on the CPU. So I think that's why we knew it was going to be a rock solid CPU, right? And when I got my OnePlus 15, it's been great. So we knew we were going to get a good CPU with this. What we didn't know is how the Samsung Exynos 2600 was going to perform. Everybody knows Exynos, up and down, up and down. Most of them have sucked. There's been some in the past that have actually been really good. It's been a few years, but I've had some good Exynos CPUs. I just have. But with them not being consistent, that's why we didn't know what we were going to get. And this has been highly anticipated. Samsung, I've made videos about this. In a perfect world, Samsung would use their own CPUs in their own phones, just like Google does with their Pixels, just like Apple does in their iPhones. So you can see Samsung continually trying to move forward. You see them continually investing more money into R&D, into getting this CPU thing right, because they will at some point move to an all Exynos Samsung Galaxy. I know that it's kind of a yikes moment, a cringy moment for some to hear that, but it's true. They're going to move to all Exynos at some point, whether it's 2 years from now or 10 years from now. But I personally have not been able to get my hands on a Samsung Exynos 2600 S26 model. Again, they're only available on the base and the plus models, and they're not in other markets. In fact, they're in markets outside of where I'm at. So I guess I'd have to jump on eBay and grab one. But I kind of wanted to see some tests first before I got my hands on one, because what if the general consensus was this thing sucks, it overheats, it's just more Exynos trash, right? Well, if that was the overall sentiment, I probably would skip the Exynos S26 series. But let's get to the info. That's what this video is all about. Okay, so here's what we're going to review right now. This is it. We are going to review heating, thermals, benchmarks, games, all sorts of stuff, how this performs, battery life, all sorts of stuff, right? We're gonna look at it all. Exynos is still better than Tensor? Yeah, and that brings up a good question, and I think you can tell what that's going to be. We'll get to that in a minute. But we're going to look at it all. And again, if you want to dive into this info, I have my shared notebook LM on this very topic. In fact, that's where I got the graphics from. It's down below in the description box. Well, let's jump into it. So, the contenders, the claims. And why don't I have that graphic on my side? Come on now. Now you got me looking like a fool. Here we go. I got it. Contenders and claims. We have Exynos 2600. We have the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5, which is in the S26 Ultra. And then, just for shits and giggles, we got the Snapdragon 8 Gen 5, the non-elite Gen 5, what you can find in the Motorola Signature, right? I was very happy with that CPU. I've used that and I loved it. So very capable. But we're going to see where this Exynos 2600 falls. Is it in between? Is it on top? We shall see. Sorry about that. I guess asking for more than an hour of quiet time is too much to ask. Okay, so we're going to get into this. Does Samsung's highly anticipated 2 nanometer GAA node finally close the efficiency gap to the TSMC made Qualcomm Snapdragon CPUs? We shall find out. Let's move on. So, here we're going to isolate silicon from smartphone constraints. And again, it's screwing up on me. So this test involves what test do we have here? All tests required active pre-cooling in short 5-minute bursts to bypass aggressive OEM thermal management. So this test was pre-cooling and short 5-minute bursts. So apparently after a amount of time, the thermal management will kick in. So this is trying to test the device to its maximum by avoiding the thermal management, meaning once it gets ramped up, the CPU will scale back because it's generating heat. Just think of it as a automobile engine, right? If you rev those RPMs up, the higher your RPM goes, your thermometer gauge, your temperature gauge goes up too. So it's kind of how this works, and it'll scale it back if it gets too hot. Now, the inference on these CPUs, the difference between them, look at the Exynos. High inference, high erratic thermal throttling, aggressive game optimizations, unpredictable background app killing. And with the Snapdragon 8 Elite, you get medium inference, you get some unpredictable background management, and some that kills data collection apps when cool. Interesting. I don't remember seeing that in the test, but okay. And then with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 5, which you see in the signature, I got low inference, highly predictable 3-minute power boost, perfectly stable for baseline benchmarking. So the difference between the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 and the Snapdragon 8 Gen 5 is they're based on the same Orion cores, and the 8 Elite Gen 5 is essentially the Snapdragon 8 Gen 5 just on steroids, just overclocked, just ramped up. So you're going to see more modest but consistent results with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 5. Let's get into CPU raw performance parity. So look at this. There is a benchmark test. Geekbench 6 multi-core, Geekbench 6 single core. The Exynos 2600 stays right up there. I mean, it's when tested under certain conditions, and with specifically using this application, the Geekbench app, you can see that on multi-core, it's a pretty damn good score, right? It's only 1% slower, I would say worse or slower, either way, than the 8 Elite Gen 5. It's essentially the same thing. And with the single core score, it's slightly slower at 10% lower points than what the 8 Elite Gen 5. But that, make no mistake about it, those 3,200 points is a massive score. Anything over 3,000 is pretty damn good when you're testing these devices. So it's not shabby by any means. And in pure synthetic performance, Samsung's 2 nanometer GAA architecture successfully reaches flagship level scores. Now, look at what kind of happens here with this, though. Here is the issue, though. This is the issue that you run into with the Exynos 2600. Is it uses far more power than the Snapdragon variant. So the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5, when using peak performance, when it's revved up, when you're doing a 3D Mark test, when you're doing a Geekbench 6 test, when you're gaming at its maximum performance, the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 uses on average 21.48 watts. Essentially 21 watts is how much power it's drawing, that the CPU with Snapdragon, compared to, look at that number, over 30 watts with the Exynos 2600. 30 watts, a mobile device CPU. Those 30 watts, isn't that insane? Isn't that insane? Those 30 watts, that's similar to what a laptop draws in some desktops. Not a gaming desktop, but you get the point. A mobile CPU draws as much power, or it requires as much power as a PC. That's crazy. Now, the Exynos 2600 is a deca-core. It's got 10 cores. The Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 is an octa-core, has 8 cores. So it can achieve the same performance as the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5, but it uses far more power to get there. You see what I'm saying? Makes me wonder if they went back to an 8-core CPU, probably wouldn't achieve these numbers. And it looks like they had to throw in those 2 extra cores to really achieve those high results. But those 2 extra cores and them really ramping up the power to achieve those scores is drawing 30 watts of power. That is insane. That is insane. Now here is the mid-band efficiency gap, and the Exynos 2600 uses 63% more peak power, but fails to maintain its initial speed advantage. You can see how the Snapdragon, the blue line, very consistent, very consistent. It just plateaus and plateaus on out of here. The Exynos 2600 draws way more power to plateau, and then as time goes on, as progress goes on, it drops off. So essentially, the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5, much more efficient. Let's move into that 10-core CPU I was talking about. Here's the architecture. High baseline voltage requirement, much more than the Snapdragon variant. The 10-core cluster requires a higher baseline voltage just to activate. This severely degrades efficiency in lower and mid power bands where fewer, more efficient cores would normally operate. So you see where the 10-core thing, pretty cool, right? You can achieve some really great scores. but you see what it does to require those extra cores to get ramped up. It requires much more power. Much more power. Peak performance scales competitively. Exynos is only 2.4% slower when running the 3D Mark Wildlife Extreme. At absolute peak power, Samsung's GPU design holds its own, achieving near parity in efficiency with baseline Snapdragon. So the GPU in the Exynos 2600 is fantastic. It's very, very strong. Now, taking this back to Pixel, I heard for the Pixel 11, a little sidestep here, Pixel 11 might use a new GPU. It's not set in stone, it's not signed, sealed, and delivered, but I've heard people within the Pixel department at Google are really frustrated by the GPU and or the performance that, or lack of performance that this Immortals GPU has been for Google Tensor. And just justified misogyny, yeah, it says it all right there. Exynos still better than Tensor. Well, I've heard around a grapevine that the Tensor is going to be, the CPU is going to be the same. However, the GPU, to be honest with you, if you want to get really specific, diving into Pixel and into Tensor, the CPU is not bad. It's the GPU that blows. It's the GPU that is very subpar. In fact, embarrassing GPU scores. And in my opinion, that's why it gives you subpar performance on Pixel when you play games, when you edit and or render 4K videos. It's a non-starter for me. Like if I on my Pixel, I don't edit videos and I don't game because it just can't handle it. So I think with this Pixel 11, they're either going to choose a different approach with the Immortals GPU and their team, meaning implement a whole new design into this Tensor G6 CPU and give Immortals another shot. But I also heard, bringing it back to this story, that they might be in touch with Samsung to essentially bring over some or a version of the Exynos 2600 GPU to the Tensor G6. And again, if they just did that, I think it would drastically improve user experience when really putting the CPU and GPU to test. I think it's imperative for them to do something at this point. For now, it's really a three-legged race between Apple, Qualcomm, and MediaTek. Yes, I love MediaTek. You can find, actually, I was just looking at one today, a Galaxy Tab S11, S10 has the MediaTek CPUs in there. They're fantastic. I wish more companies here would use MediaTek. I wish Google would scrap the whole Tensor thing and just move to MediaTek. I know they're not going to, but I wish they would. They're great. I love them. Can't get enough of them. They're fantastic. But maybe we'll find a MediaTek 9500 CPU test and then match that up with the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 and the Exynos 2600. Would like to see where MediaTek will fall into all this. Let's move into the 4-watt GPU limitation. So there's a power cap of 4 watts on these GPUs. Now, when power is artificially capped at 4 watts for the GPU, the Exynos architecture drops by roughly 15% in efficiency when compared to the Snapdragon GPU. Just repeating the struggles that this Exynos 2600 is having in some of these tests when compared to its competition, Qualcomm. So again, when you power cap it, the GPU at 4 watts, it results in a lower baseline frames per second. And the Snapdragon variant, when capped at 4 watts, has a 15% higher frames per second. Real world gaming relies on resolution downgrades. So there's a thing called dynamic resolution masking. Apparent gaming parity is an illusion. To maintain 60 frames per second and control power draw, Exynos configurations automatically default to significantly lower internal rendering resolutions. They're doing that. They're lowering the resolution to make it easier for the CPU and the GPU to perform those operations and throw that up on the display. Whatever the graphic is, whatever the frame is at that second, the more dense that frame is, the more harder the CPU and the GPU have to work to put that frame on at that second on the display. So makes sense, right? The Exynos will downscale the image so it's easier on the CPU to keep up with all of the tasks. The Snapdragon appears to not have any issues, but it looks like the Exynos downscaling a bit just to keep up. So there's that to think about, right? And then you got the heat barrier. The heat barrier. Now I'm going to add this to the stage. The heat barrier. So sustained high stress tasks push the Exynos past the thermal envelope of the S26 compact chassis, resulting in system level thermal shutdowns. This was probably the main issue that I saw in testing, was the heating. Yes, heating is back with Exynos. I'm sure everybody's shocked, right? Well, it looks like they still haven't been able to really get a grasp of the heating problems, because look, they all heat up when under stress, but it looks like Samsung's goes a little hotter. And then, as I mentioned at the beginning, the hotter it gets, the more it scales back. So it tries to not get hot, tries to cool it down by scaling back just how intense that CPU is working. This seems it was a constant issue whenever it was really put to the test. It'll do a Geekbench 6 benchmark test, no problems. It'll do a slight, what is the 3D Mark test that's like a, what do they call it? I forgot. They have like certain levels of benchmarking. It'll do the 1 or 2 level benchmarking, no problems. But when you put it through its like 20, 25 minute benchmarking test, it overheats and it shuts down. While the Snapdragon variant blows through it, no problem at all. So you can see where that's a problem, right? What if you're making a good 30-minute YouTube video, 4K, 60 frames per second, or even 30 frames per second, but when you hit complete render, when you want to get it going, when you're done with the project and you want to render that video you're making, I don't know if the Exynos 20, depending on how long that video is, may overheat, may shut down. So I saw that numerous times here, which is not a good sign. I was hoping this would not be a problem, but it appears it is. So in this test metric, 4K, 30 frames per second, HEVC, 10-bit video encoding. Timestamp, Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 got the task completed in 30 minutes flat. The Exynos 2600 overheated and shut down. So it didn't even finish it. Not good, right? Not good. Sustained high stress task put Exynos past the thermal envelope of the S26 compact chassis. Not good. Real world endurance test. Here's another test. Exynos 2600, Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5, test conditions, control variables, Wi-Fi disabled, 5G on, identical to the S26 chassis, identical display. So the translates synthetic micro inefficiencies to tangible battery drain over a continuous 9.5 hour usage cycle. And here is the results. The Snapdragon 8 Elite S26 outlasted the Exynos 2600 S26 by almost 2.5 hours, meaning they were put through a certain test, videos, 4K videos, phone calls, maps, WhatsApp, YouTube, 3D Mark testing, TikTok scrolling emulation, Amazon Prime Video, and Instagram. So they were fair, easy test, compatible tests on both devices, identical testing on both devices. The Exynos 2600 dead at 6 hours and 48 minutes, while the Snapdragon 8 Elite CPU S26 finished at 9 hours and 26 minutes. So the battery life is huge between these two. 2.5 hours. That's a big difference. That's a huge difference when these are supposed to be comparable CPUs. So the anatomy of the efficiency tax you have with the Exynos 2600, you have the 10 core architecture, which we discussed, drawing all that power, higher baseline voltage required to run those 10 cores, spikes up to 30 watts under certain loads, generates excess heat that it cannot dissipate. In real world results, 28% less battery life. So the 2 nanometer GAA reality check doesn't look so good right now. The TSMC manufactured Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 maintains clear, efficient leadership, class leading performance. You see why Snapdragon continually uses TSMC for manufacturing of their CPU. You see why Apple continually uses TSMC to manufacture their CPU, while Samsung, I guess, failed to hit the mark, right? I mean, it didn't even achieve finish some of these testing that they put it through. So despite the marketing and all of the hoopla behind the GAA Samsung node, the gate all around lithography, independent telemetry confirms Samsung's foundry remains at least 2 steps behind TSMC in actual power to performance scaling. This is very concerning that we know Samsung is looking to put out a all Exynos Galaxy line at some point, but it appears they're not quite there yet. I had my fingers crossed, and maybe I have egg on my face because I've repeated numerous times. I think they've crossed. I think they've made the turn on the correct path on the CPU road that we travel on, but it looks like they're not quite there yet. Now, this is their first real big CPU, first real big push on this new GAA packing process, and maybe they'll learn from their mistakes on this one, and maybe the 2700 Exynos 2700 will perform better. Maybe they can improve this on the 2600 with software updates. They can remap it, rescale it. I don't know, and only time will tell. But it doesn't look good to this point. It does not look good. And the definitive silicon scorecard. Single core IPC Exynos 2600, 2 scores, 8 Elite 3 stars, 8 Elite, Jesus Christ, the 8 Gen 5 1 star. I'm not really sure how they scored this thing, but you can see here the Exynos 2600 can hang in there with the 8 Elite Gen 5. It's just when you ramp it up and really put it to its limits, it fails to deliver, while the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 has no issues delivering under high workloads. The underdog's return. The Exynos 2600 is undeniably Samsung's best silicon since the legendary Exynos 7420. That Exynos 7420, that's the CPU I was talking about. I could not remember it last week, and I was trying to remember the CPU that was I was trying to think of the very last Exynos CPU that I really liked and enjoyed and performed wonderful. It was this one, Exynos 7420. That's the one that was in the Samsung Galaxy S6 Edge. Do you remember that one? It's like the first phone with a curved screen. It was it only one side? No, that was the Note. Well, I don't want to get off on a tangent. Anyways, yes, that was honestly their very last good performing CPU, the Exynos 7420. It achieves true flagship peak performance and competitive GPU scaling However, it is fundamentally hampered and or flawed by an efficiency tax. The power-starved 10-core architecture demands way too much power and watts for mid-level tasks, resulting in excess heat, resolution downgrades, and nearly 3 fewer hours of battery life. I would say all 3 of those are the death blow for this. That's where it hits you the worst. I don't know how they look. I'm not in the CPU world. I just barely scratched the surface. I know the basics, but they're gonna have to do something. They're gonna have to go back, roll it back to an 8-core CPU. It eating through 30 watts of power is insane. That's insane to think that a phone CPU draws as much power as a PC CPU. I mean, yikes. So it looks like a nice try, Samsung. Nice try. I did want to grab a Exynos 2600 CPU, S26 series, but after seeing this, I don't think I will. I don't think I will. Give me 1 second and we'll close this out. Give me 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. Um, so if you want to dive into some more information, I have links down below. I gave granted access to the Notebook LM where I got all of this content from. Be my guest. It's open to view if you want to check it out. The S26 CPUs battle the Exynos 2600 versus the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5. Notebook is down below. And I also have the, let's see, the S26 Ultra troubleshooting guide, meaning if you have issues the most common issues and how to solve them if they are solvable right there. So, Notebook LM is a fantastic tool I use all the time. That's probably one AI feature that I use the most. All right, so we have tomorrow. I do have news. We're gonna get the Nothing Phone 4A Pro tomorrow. I checked on the tracking. It's already in town. It was supposed to be here like, I think Wednesday. And I paid for overnight shipping. And sure enough, it's going to be here overnight. Well, it fell over the weekend, so I'll give them a break. But it'll be here tomorrow. Delivery tomorrow for the Nothing Phone 4A Pro. And also earbuds from Nothing. So we'll have earbuds. I'll probably do an unboxing for the Nothing Phone 4A Pro just because it looks so nice. Normally I wouldn't, but we'll do an unboxing on that and get it started, get it tested. It's going to be the silver model. I got that 12 gigs, 256 storage variant. I don't know who can use 128 anymore. Those things are just not usable. MediaTek, and it's not so much the storage I can't use, because I could deal with storage. You just have to be mindful of the pictures, the videos you take. Like I can deal with a 128 gig phone. You just, with every picture you take, or not every picture, but basically video you would take, you have to either back it up and then delete it on device, save it in a cloud storage. You have to be very mindful. Basically almost every video, and after so many pictures, you're going to have to monitor it. I can deal with 128 if I had to. What really gets me is the 8 gigs of RAM. Like that's not enough in today's day and age. Like, and I know on Nothing phones you can do RAM expansion, but it's just not the same, right? It's just not the same. So 8 gigs, 128 out the door. We got 12, 256. Silver Nothing Phone 4A Pro coming tomorrow. So I'll do the unboxing tomorrow and then let the fun begin. So MediaTek, definitely a good option. That should go in Nothing and Google phones. I agree. Nothing was using MediaTek CPUs, but I think that was with the phone 2A. They used MediaTek. Then the 3A, they used Qualcomm. In the 4A, they're using Qualcomm. And after the phone 2A was released, Nothing signed a 3-year deal with Qualcomm, or should I say a 3 series device release with Qualcomm. So the next 3 phones they put out had to have a Qualcomm CPU. I don't know if, and this would be the 3rd and final year. I don't know if they read up on the Qualcomm deal. I'm kind of hoping I'm not going to say I hope they don't. I'm kind of hoping, I want to see them release a device with MediaTek. Again, I like MediaTek. I don't have anything bad to say about them. So I just wish more companies would use MediaTek. Yeah, it's not the same, especially in what really makes a difference with RAM expansion is how fast your UFS storage is. So I think on the Nothing Phone 4A Pro, is it 4.0 now? Or no, it's 3.1. It's 3.1, which when you initially think about it, you're like, damn, they're still on 3rd generation UFS storage, but there's a enormous leap in performance from UFS 3.0 to UFS 3.1. In fact, there's a bigger leap in performance going from 3.0 to 3.1 than there is going from 3.1 to 4.0 or 4.0 to 4.1. So at least they're at 3.1. That's the very lowest UFS storage I think they should put on any phones. Now, when you're putting on a budget phone or a mid-range phone, you got to remember now, you're buying a budget and or a mid-range phone, so it's not going to have top of the line specs. It's just not, right? It'll have some decent specs, but it's not going to be specced out. So they got to cut the cost somewhere. I can see why they did 3.1. Now, that comes into play with RAM expansion because it's using that storage as RAM, random access storage, right? So I think they'll be okay on UFS storage 3.1 for RAM expansion, but the overall point is it's just not the same as real RAM, right? It's just not the same. It can help, but it's just, it's just not the same. MediaTek and CMF phones, do they? I think they do. I think you're right. I was gonna buy a CMF phone to give away on the channel, and I don't think I am anymore. I think I have to move on to another phone because I realized last week that the CMF phones were released in the United States under their beta program. Like, it's not officially official, meaning like if somebody won the CMF phone 2 Pro, what if they had AT&T? What if it didn't work, right? So I'm like, damn, I don't know. Whatever. I was looking around a little bit to see what phones we can do for our giveaway here. Did nothing once have a 16 512 option? I think the Nothing Phone 3 has that option. The real ugly looking one. I think that's their biggest storage option variant. I think. And I guess we can find out. Let's see here. Do I have a browser open? I guess I could look on my phone. It says I'm on Nothing's website. Their largest storage variant is 16 gigs, 512. Yes, so they got 16 gigs of RAM, 512 gigs of storage on their highest end model. They only have two options for us here in the US, a 12 gig 256 for the Phone 3 and a 16 512. So yeah, it is available. And those are on sale right now. You can get a Phone 3 for the same price as a Phone 4A Pro. How much is that going for? $599, and they're originally $799. See, that's perfectly priced. That's a mid-range. I mean, it's upper tier mid-range. Certainly not a true flagship in my opinion. But even at a decent price, I still don't really want that phone because how ugly it is. If I could find one for like $300, I might give it a try. But I'm not paying $600 for that. Hell no. Yeah, they do. I know, I do too. Yeah, I know. That's what I do. But, and I guess if somebody did win it that had AT&T, I guess they could sell it, right? I mean, you could still get, I don't know, a couple $100 from that CMF Phone 2 Pro. So we'll have to see. We will have to see. Well, it is about that time. I do appreciate it. It's getting a little late over here. It's getting a little sun's going down, looking out the window. So I appreciate the time you've spent here over today. I really do appreciate your time. Please subscribe to the eSIMstudios YouTube channel. We got I got more case reviews. I'm going to try and squeeze in here before we got to eat dinner that I'm going to put out for the S26 Ultra. Side note, I haven't purchased any cases for the Phone 4A Pro. Not one. It's kind of shocking because I have a ton of cases for every phone I get. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I think the 4A Pro comes with a case. All the unboxing videos I've seen, there's a case in the box. Now, I don't know if they're doing that just for markets outside of the US but this might be the very first phone that I've ever had that I use without a case, and I'm not buying any cases for it. So it sucks, but Amazon doesn't have any on Prime. It does come with a case. Okay, cool. Well, good. But then I won't have to buy one, because if you jump on Prime, they do have cases for the 4A Pro, but if you look at the delivery times, they're all coming from China. All of them have like a 3-week delivery window. And it's like, that's crazy. Yeah, I'm going to use the one in the box. I'm definitely going to use the one in the box, because I was going to say I at least need one. If I'm going to use it as my main phone, I know it's going to get dropped. Yeah, and I definitely don't want to bust the back or dent it up or scratch it. I'll use the clear case they give with me. So I got to run. Appreciate the time. Thank you very much. And I will see y'all tomorrow, definitely. 4A Pro unboxing, initial thoughts, review, all that good stuff. With earbuds, too. With earbuds. So the Nothing Buds. So appreciate it. Please have a wonderful evening. Please be safe. And as always, see you tomorrow. Appreciate it.